Hello. I think I think we're on. Hi everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to the WWDC Community Daily Wrap Up for Day 3 at WWDC. I'm Ed Arenberg, and this is
Sai. Hi, everyone. My name is Sai, and I'm so excited to join Ed and, recap day 3 of WWDC Community Week.
yes, so many videos, so little sleep. It's been a
Yeah,
rough 3 days, but
it's usually no sleep. It's usually no sleep till Dub Dub, and then also no sleep during Dub Dub because of the session videos.
right, right. Well, at least they're now more circumspect with them being live. I remember back in 2014. I was there, and that's when Swift got announced. So my days were going to sessions during the day, going back to my room, reading the book for a while because the book had just come out. You could get the 600-page Swift book, and then trying to look at the sessions I hadn't seen since they didn't publish them until a few hours later, and then maybe
Right.
2 hours of sleep, and then back to it. So in
Yeah,
some ways, this at least lets you kind of absorb it at your own rate.
yeah, that definitely. Yeah, I've been meeting a lot of developers here, and yeah, they've been talking about their experience with when Swift was first announced, everyone was sort of in that transitional state from Objective C to Swift, and it sort of feels like we're reliving that, especially with the changes to Swift UI this year, and everyone is like, all right, I think this is the year I can move more of my UI kit code over to Swift UI, and so yeah, no, it's really interesting to hear and see what everyone is doing and watching this week. Yeah,
Yeah, just on that note, it does feel very much like that transition where so little UI kit was mentioned. And even the session that they had on what's new in Swift in UI kit, which I watched earlier, felt a lot like the what's new in Objective C sessions that they had when Swift was being announced. Like we're making a few changes in Objective C so that we can make Swift work interoperate. I feel it's like the same sort of transition period for UI kit.
yeah, and it was kind of funny too because I read an article a couple hours ago about like what's kind of summarizing the changes in UI kit, and I haven't really touched a UI kit. I haven't touched UI kit or looked at their changes since Swift UI got announced in 2019. So it was actually pretty funny because everything that was mentioning like what's new in UI kit, I was like, oh, there's a Swift UI alternative to that. So that was pretty funny to me. But I mean, it's good to see that they are sort of keeping up, UI kit. And my hypothesis, I guess, is that they're gonna polish off UI kit as well as they can, so it can support the apps for the next couple of years. But then eventually, I think they did mention in the State of the Union, right, the best way to build an app is with Swift UI.
Yeah, I think they'd qualify a new app,
New app.
right?
That's true, right? They didn't mention existing apps, so yeah.
Right. But it's a process. So I think
Yeah.
if anyone has time this week to at least watch the What's New sessions, the rest of it, you can hold off until you really need to go more in depth on some of those. But the What's New, I think, really give you the breadth of everything that's been announced this so far this week. And I've been impressed. At first there's that letdown. Oh, what? No Reality OS, nothing big, major new stuff down the pike, at least for devs. But they seem to have touched a lot of areas, and that's pretty
Yeah,
evident in all the
there's
what's.
yeah, no, absolutely. There definitely was a lot of new APIs that like maybe we didn't get, the shiny, reality OS or headset or whatever, but I think there's definitely a lot for developers to play around with from, WeatherKit to the new room plan with ARKit 6, and then they've got all these new stuff with iPad and making desktop class apps. And so definitely I was feeling overwhelmed with the number of sessions that I bookmarked that I had to get through. But I think like Ed, as you said, like just take it at your own pace, right? Because you have the whole year to watch these sessions. So by no means do you have to like rush and binge watch all the sessions this week. So
Right.
and it's been like that for everyone I've been talking to. Everyone's hasn't even watched a session yet, or maybe has watched only one or two. Me myself, I've watched I think maybe 3 sessions this whole week so far, and so yeah. It's
Well,
I haven't
I don't
watched
want
a
to
whole
admit it.
lot, but I'm excited to get through them. Huh?
I don't know if I want to admit it, but I've watched 16 so far.
Okay, well, Ed's shooting for the stars right here.
But I will say that some of them were on kind of on the side while I was working on something,
Mm,
and sometimes I had them just the audio was kind of streaming to me, and so I'm really
right.
trying to get the gist of what they're trying to cover. And I know I'll go back and look at it more in depth a little later when I really
Yeah,
want to.
absolutely. Yeah,
But
that I
one
think
takeaway,
yeah. Mhm,
one takeaway from all of it, I was really impressed by the diversity they had in the presenters.
mhm. Oh,
Um,
really? Okay.
they, go back 5, 6 years or so even, and it was your typical what you pick as your, I guess I'd picture as an engineer. And these days, that doesn't fit the mold of so many people with different backgrounds and different um, experiences and lifestyles and stuff. And so the fact that they had more representation in doing the presentations, I was really encouraged by that. That was great to see.
Yeah. I think that's really cool that you mentioned that because Apple's always been the first to reflect everyone across what they do, and by having a more diverse, I guess, cast in terms of the WWDC sessions. I think that's really well that they're reflecting, truly sending the message that anyone can be an engineer. It's not limited by what society pictures as an engineer.
Yeah. So there are sessions, and then there's labs and lounges. And
Yeah.
I know for somebody new to this who hasn't gone through it before, even those of us who've done it before, it's still overwhelming as to how much they can put out there and when you can find time to get in, when you can get in. For those who aren't as familiar, the labs are great for people who come pre-prepared. You've got your questions, you know your issues, and you can schedule something so that you can get your 20 minutes or whatever it is with them to work with them to get an answer. Um, but there were far fewer labs offered this year than last year. So I'm guessing that they realized that there aren't that many people that are in that position, that I have this technical support question that only Apple can answer. And so I'm going to I'm going to hold off on that until dub happens, and I'm going to make sure I reserve a lounge time, or I'm sorry, a lab time for that.
Yeah.
But
Have you been to any of the labs this week?
I didn't get in any, but I've got 3 scheduled
Oh,
for
okay.
tomorrow and Friday,
Which
assuming I get
labs?
in.
Which
I'm
labs?
doing. I have questions on the chart stuff, so I have an app that makes a
Oh,
lot of use
okay.
of charts, and
Mhm.
I'm thinking this looks good enough to re-implement in their stuff, but there's questions. They look pretty, and you watch the presentation.
Yeah.
They've got their nice pre-canned solution for the situation, and everything's set up. But then you bring your problem case to it, like I would like a chart that can scroll. They didn't present that. How do you do that? Is that even possible?
Mhm.
So that's kind of questions I'm going to be delving into in a lab, hopefully, if I get picked. The other
Nice.
one's on
Yeah, cool.
HealthKit.
Good luck to you.
Yeah, thanks. The other one's on HealthKit. They have one lab on HealthKit. So I guess it's, I'm sorry, one session. I think they have multiple other labs, but they had only one session I could see in this week on HealthKit. And there's been some good additions to it. It actually helps with my HealthKit related app. So I'm looking forward to diving into that in the lab.
Nice.
But lounges, it used to be the time was make sure you sign up for labs. Got to get to the labs. This is where everything happens. You got to really get your stuff in there and
Mhm.
get your time in the labs. And in the old days, you would stand in line for 40 minutes just to get your seat into a lab. But now the lounges seem like it's a great opportunity to get, if you've got that one question or maybe a couple questions in a particular topic, that's a great place to be able to get them answered.
Yeah, I
Have you
think
been?
they've definitely taken advantage of having, this online setting, right? And so lounges over, the Slack lounges, it's a great way to, instantly get that question that you want. And so I personally, I'll be honest, I haven't like actually participated in the lounges as much, but from what I hear, they've been a lot of fun, and you kind of get that like personal interaction with these Apple engineers and designers that you were in a lab. I guess you were like limited by the time allotment, But that's not a
Hmm.
case with the lounges. You can, just ask your question, you can interact with them, and they've, customized these lounges with different events. So you've got the office hours, right, where you can ask questions, but you've also got like meet the presenters, right, where you can, if you watch a session, you can actually meet the presenter for that session. Or
Yeah,
they've even got challenges this year. Have you seen any of the challenges?
I did, and I intentionally avoided them. Although there's one that looks interesting on Friday. I think I might jump on. So we'll see.
Mm. Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing what you build in that challenge. But yeah, no, the challenges have been very, very unique. And I think my favorite one was, making an app icon, or I think it was an app using like 8-bit designs or like 1-bit
Nice.
designs. But people have been sharing them on like, Twitter, and it's been really cool to see what people are like converting from these rich graphics all the way down to this like 8-bit mock-up of it. So it's really
Cool.
cool.
Yeah, I hope this year they somehow archive the lounge stuff. I know people last year made an effort to do it on their own because Apple kind of just deleted
Mhm.
everything. So we'll see. Maybe somebody already knows they're just copy pasting as the launches go. That would be nice to see.
Right.
All right. So I think we kind of touched on this other topic that the UI kit. I don't want to say deprecation, but it just feels like the obsolescence period that we're going through to say, hey, this isn't the future anymore. So let's slowly figure out how you can transition out of it. But the elements that they introduced that are new are clearly all native Swift UI stuff. The grid, the table, the charts, the new share stuff, all Swift
Mhm.
UI specific. And it's great to see that what they've been able to do with Swift in general, the composability concepts of builders and so forth, that they can now extend that to all these new areas that as a paradigm for building UIs and experiences, the functionality in an app, really looks great to me. I'm looking forward to the new future.
Yeah, the new declarative future. But yeah, I've been noticing the same transition too, not just across from the different frameworks that are, being offered, but if you notice too, like in the sessions, usually when they give sample code or they show the demo app that they're working on, it's usually all Swift UI. And I think it's been like that since last year at WWDCCommunity, where I noticed that change where, the sample code they would show, it was all in Swift UI. And as someone who was struggling with Swift UI, it was kind of nice to see the example code that they were building, and get inspired by what they were doing and building. But very rarely now do I see a sample app in one of their example projects that you can download online that was actually written in UIKit or something like that. So yeah, it's interesting to see the future that they're transitioning towards. And I think they said the transition to Swift UI was, I think, a 3-year step, right? And
Yeah.
so when they first announced it in 2019, and so this would mark the end of that 3-year step. And I think Swift UI has definitely made a very massive leap forward this year in terms of all the new components it's offered, and all the new functionality that wasn't there before, but it's there now. So I think that's pretty cool.
It's clear in the tooling too. Have you had a chance to play with
Mhm.
the new Xcode yet?
I got a chance. I haven't played around with it too much, but one change of Xcode 14 that I really like is the new sticky headers based on
Yeah.
if you're scrolling through like a class or a structure, it like sticks the name of that class or structure at the top, and so you can you know exactly what you're working in if you've got a really long code file.
For those of us who still write really, really long code instead of these nice little
Yeah,
functional functions, but yep, know how that works.
yeah,
Um,
and then
but even
previews also has been
oh yeah, yeah, I've been doing a little
insanely
demo out
fast.
in using some of the new features like grid and chart and such, just to see
Mhm.
how they work and just to see how responsive it is in Xcode. I'm not run. I don't need to run the simulator anymore. I mean, I know it's running under the hood. I know it's back there doing its thing,
Yeah,
but
right, right.
I mean, how many of us, up until now, would say, okay, I can get so far with previews, and now I'm just running the
Hmm.
simulator and just really testing
Yeah.
stuff out there. I have yet to have to do it because it's interactive, it's responsive.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if you can set a breakpoint. I haven't tried that. But
That's something worth trying out. Yeah. I think I tend to use Firebase for a lot of my apps. And so usually the moment I start adding the Firebase SDK, that's when I can't start previews anymore. I got to switch to the simulator because in the amount of time it takes for the preview to show up, I could just load it up on the simulator. But I am excited to see if, things are a little faster because, my workflow used to be if you're going to build a small component, use previews. The moment you start connecting it to the backend, use simulator. But I think a lot of the new features with Xcode previews for Swift UI, like in previews, you can now view the preview in light mode, dark mode side by
oh
side,
my,
and different
yeah.
landscape orientations, dynamic type. It supports the whole thing, and so
How much
that
time
makes
is
it
that?
really really fun.
How much time is
Yeah,
that
it's
going to
definitely
save? I mean,
right? It's going to
that'd be
be,
great.
so much easier than trying to open multiple simulators or flipping the, screen sizes. And so, yeah, I'm excited to play around with that and see if I can convert more over to previews than using simulators.
I've just been very impressed with how stable it is for this early beta and how quick and responsive it is that I'm just typing away and all of a sudden there's the previews already updating and Xcode's auto indenting everything for me as soon as I add new, and start to enclose things. It it's snappy.
So speaking of betas, I'm assuming you've got the Xcode 14 beta, but have you installed any other betas on any of your other devices?
I have, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
So I have an older iPhone that's a 10s, and I put
Mhm.
16 on it, and it's very good. Yeah, I still wouldn't put it on my main phone,
Mhm.
but from so far it's been very stable. The features look great. I was playing around yesterday with cutting images, people out of pictures, and and
Yeah.
and messaging it to them and stuff,
Mhm.
and it worked with animals, it worked with items and stuff. That capability is pretty impressive. And
Yeah, I
the lock
think
screen,
I tried that out. Yeah.
the
Sorry, go
lock
ahead.
screen, kind of fun, but I
Yeah.
think we need more diversity in it. I'm going to reserve judgment on it until it's a little bit more mature and there's more widgets and
Mm.
stuff out there.
Yeah, that was been kind of my downside. I got all into the customization of the lock screen, and then I opened up the widgets, and it's just all of Apple's apps, which makes sense because it is the first beta, and of course,
Yeah.
people still need a chance to make the widgets for the lock screen. But once, like you said, there's more apps to choose from. It'll be interesting to see how far we can take this customization.
Right. And it'll be a lot like complications and watch faces are. As time goes on,
Yeah,
they'll get more and more diverse and they'll get more interesting. Apple will come out with new versions of things. So it's definitely a rich environment, I think, for going forward.
and if
Um,
history says anything, uh, maybe a year or two from now, there'll probably be a feature to share lock screens, much like how you could share watch faces.
there you go.
Last year, I think that feature was announced, so you could share lock screens. Who knows?
Possibly. I also tried the new dictation stuff and
Mhm.
with the keyboard up. And it works pretty well. You can just mix and match. You're
Yeah,
typing and talking, typing, talking. Even on an older 10s, it was working pretty responsibly.
that's pretty cool. That all these features work pretty well for a first beta, right?
Yeah, I was on a meetup a little earlier today, and people were lamenting that it doesn't work on the 7. And
Hmm.
I know people still have them; they're out there. But I'm guessing I don't think the 7 has the neural engine in it, so that's probably what they're missing
Okay,
out on.
interesting.
And so that's why the
Yeah.
10s and
So.
the 8 both had it,
Mhm.
or the 10 and the 8, whatever,
Yeah.
and so the 10s and up. So I guess Apple said it's not worth it to try to just offer some features but not all.
Hmm.
So, sorry, 7 users. Time
Yeah.
to upgrade, I guess.
Yeah. Time to upgrade, yeah. I think I've actually in a similar situation with my iPad. So I've been using the 2018 iPad Pro for the longest time, and
Yeah,
I've never really had a reason to upgrade. Even when they announced, M1 and all of that, it was still a powerful iPad. And then they announced Stage Manager, and it's only limited to iPads with the M1 chip. And
right.
so now I have a reason to upgrade. I think I'm still going to hold on to this for a while, but we'll see if the separation increases in terms of features.
I'd like to go to the Apple Store and try it out. if some point
Right. Yeah.
before I make that commitment, or maybe just get somebody else's to try it out on. I've
Mm,
used it on the Mac now because I've got a Ventura volume here, and so I've been playing around with Ventura
nice.
somewhat.
Lucky.
In fact, I'm running Ventura right now, and it's pretty stable. Everything looks pretty
You're one
good.
of the lucky ones. Yeah.
Oh,
I think you know what happened, right? On Monday.
I hadn't heard. Fill me in.
Oh, well, what happened was I
Oh,
decided
for
to
you, yes,
install for
yes.
me, yeah, I installed Ventura on my main, system and, it something messed up and I have one of the older Intel Macs and so I had to, wipe it clean and restore back to Monterey. I mean, all my data was saved and everything, so that was fine. But
Goodness.
no, that was definitely interesting. And so I think I'm gonna hold off until maybe the public beta till I hop onto
There
Ventura
you go.
again. But yeah, that was definitely interesting. It was kind of a crazy experience because usually the Mac betas have been relatively stable on my system, but I guess not this time. Yeah.
I've heard through the grapevine that this beta cycle is supposed to be shorter, so that they're going to push it through
Okay.
quicker. But we'll see what
Mm.
people come up with in terms of real issues. And I have to admit,
Yeah.
my upgrade was a bit inadvertent. I was actually trying to put it on a separate volume, and oops, it upgraded my main
Okay. All right.
volume. And so I just
Well,
crossed
fingers
my fingers
crossed.
because I had heard your
Yeah.
experience, and I thought, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
But
the thing is, I think I might be like the only one I know who Ventura completely wrecked the system because everyone I've talked to have, raved about Ventura. They've got it on a separate volume. It's working great. But
mhm.
I don't know if it's the fact that I have an Intel-based Mac or if it's just I'm not sure what
Apple's
happened.
subtle
But
way
yeah,
to
subtle
force you to
way of
upgrade.
letting you say, hey, this M2 MacBook Air, we just launched it.
Looking pretty good.
Yeah.
So I hear you're in the vicinity up there, Cupertino
Yeah,
area.
I
In like,
I've been commuting to San Jose. I kind of live close by, and so the past 3 days I've been commuting to oh my God, so many in-person events, and they've all been so much fun.
awesome. And I hear there's quite a few regular engineers, other engineers who aren't in, who didn't get in, who also came and are just sort of in the area trying to absorb the atmosphere.
Yeah, the way this happened actually was kind of funny because what happened was initially, from what I heard, there was a small group chat of maybe 10 developers who didn't get invited. And so they said, hey, if you're going to come to Cupertino or the Bay, then I'll also, book a plane as well. And we can just meet up in person there. We can watch the keynote on our own, devices, get together, have a watch party. And then slowly that group sort of expanded because people wanted to keep joining and now it's a Discord server of I think 300 plus members, which is insane.
Wow.
So a whole bunch of people kind of came over to the Bay, and we've there've been a lot of in-person events, and me personally, I wasn't invited to the keynote by Apple, but I think it was Michaela and Frank from iOS Happy Hour. They were able to secure a theater, and we sort of rented out a theater and just projected the keynote onto the big screen. And on Monday
Oh,
morning,
nice.
I think it was 15 of us just watching the keynote in this massive theater. We got popcorn and everything, so
Awesome.
it's gonna be a dub dub to remember, right? Yeah,
They should do more of that. That would be great. I would go for that. I don't need to be on the
yeah, it
campus.
was. Yeah,
Well, I heard it's kind of warm too there. Is it? What's your
it is.
experience?
It is. It's gotten a bit warmer this past week, and I know I think for all the attendees, Apple gave them sunscreen in their bags, and so part of I think also that was the reason why was because part of the event viewing was outside a bit,
Yeah.
so to avoid getting sunburnt, they covered us with or covered the developers with sunscreen. So yeah,
I heard I heard there were still issues. People were having some heat issues related to being out there so long, and a lot of people were watching
yeah.
from inside because of that.
Yeah, definitely. It was nice though being in a movie theater. We didn't have to worry about the sun.
Great. I heard a few tales, some people who were there about the excursions. So, for those who don't know, the basic premise was everybody went to the dev center first. They got their
Mhm.
materials, whatever registration, and they kind of went in to where the into the circle, and they got a little bit of roaming around time, whatever. They got their breakfast, which they had to pay for, but hey, apparently it was really nice. And
Mhm.
then they had the sessions on the inside, and then in the break time, I guess before the ADA is over, they give you a choice of 3 different tours. Either the
Right.
campus, or you can walk. They can take you a little tour of the park area. You could
Mhm.
see the um, Cafe Max, which is the big food area that they've got there. Which I don't know. They had just been there, so I don't know why they needed a tour, but maybe they gave them a little behind the scenes stuff on it. And the
Mhm.
other was the fitness center.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't know what Apple was thinking. Obviously, they couldn't rehearse this, or maybe they didn't. But
Mhm.
I heard that the tour of the campus basically was more like a floral and tour, like telling you about the park and the trees and the things and the landscaping and things like that. But everybody's on these little narrow paths. So if you weren't
Mhm.
right up in the front, you couldn't hear
Mhm.
anything. Everybody else was kind of strung
Oh,
out back,
no.
kind of looking around because the paths aren't that big. And for the fitness center, they took them on the paths around the campus all the way to the fitness center. And they said, here it is. That's the fitness center. Okay, everybody, let's go back. They didn't get to go in.
Interesting.
So,
I wonder why. But, I think it is cool that like Apple is sort of experimenting with these new forms of interactivity for DubDub, the in-person DubDub, however they're testing it. And I have met, some of the people on the developer relations teams, and they're definitely listening to feedback. And so, definitely tell, the friends with the tails to
yeah.
let them know in the feedback. And I think we're both going to get developer surveys at the end of the week asking for our
Oh,
feedback
good.
on how it went. And I think, they take it seriously. The developer relations team. I think they've done a really good job. All things
Oh, yeah.
considered. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's rationale, COVID related and all that stuff. And there's only so much they're going to be able to do in
True.
situations like that. But the one thing that I thought that was really encouraging was the Dev Center, because people had nothing but raves to say
Yeah.
about the Dev Center itself. From
Yeah.
the way I understand it is, Apple invites developers out to Cupertino all the time to
Hmm.
talk with them about their problems and issues and have the sessions with them. But they'd go to their meeting rooms in one of the buildings, and they'd escort them in, escort them to the bathroom. They couldn't go anywhere else, and they were kind of locked into their space and escort them out.
Hmm.
And not a great experience for the developers who are having to come and visit and all in that environment. So the Dev Center becomes this more playground for the developers, and they can freely
Yeah.
have more freedom of, I can go to the bathroom on my own. I can go, I don't have to be escorted everywhere and monitored the whole time while you're
Yeah.
there. But it does sound like it's still going to be invite only. I don't think you can
It
just
is
wander
invite
in and say,
only.
oh, hey, I'm a dev.
I
Let me in.
I did wish I could like, because I wish it was more like library based, right? Where you could, just walk in, show that you're a developer and just walk in. But it does make sense why it would be invite based because it is in the Bay after all. So I'm sure if
And,
the entire Bay tried to show up to this,
yeah,
this new building that Apple opened up for developers, it would be chaos. So
30,
I get why
34
it's
million,
invite only.
right?
I think I've
34 million,
heard though, you can, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, 34 million devs all decide to show up at the same time. Yeah.
It's definitely gonna be chaotic. But I think I've heard like if you feel like you're, I guess, deserving of an invitation to the developer center, you could, email someone in
Yeah.
developer relations or Apple developer support, and maybe, you can try to get an invite like that. But we'll see, I guess, yeah, how it plays out in the long run.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Maybe it'll be like the DTS tech support. You get, 2 sessions a year. Pick your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
I also had heard that for everyone who's kind of overwhelmed and it's only day 3 and 2 more of these to come up, don't feel like you got to absorb it all today. There's plenty of time to watch stuff later, and I still have 2021 videos on my bookmarks that I still haven't watched yet.
Yeah.
I hope to go back to eventually, but that there's going to be more stuff coming later this year. And I know last year they did a little bit of it, and I hear they might do more of it this year with tech talks and other sessions where they kind of have some time for people to get more in depth into the tech. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
that.
I'm
Go ahead.
I've noticed that. Yeah, that I think, and we were talking about this earlier, right? How it's hard to, attend labs for these new technologies that you may not have questions for. And I like your idea, actually, Ed. You mentioned earlier when we were preparing, but if they could do sessions one week, labs the next week, I think that would be a really great idea because people could
Yeah.
get the weekend to, update their apps or try to play around with the new technology. Something's not working, you've got a whole week of labs to go to, which is perfect. But I think Apple does recognize, or the developer team does recognize that that's become kind of an issue. So their solution for it is also having these sessions and, I
Mhm.
guess not necessarily labs, but talks by these other engineers that you can meet with throughout the year. And so I think that's definitely a pretty cool initiative on their part.
Yeah. Well, we've got 2 more days of this.
Yeah.
Hopefully, everyone gets a little rest and we've got a couple more things coming up on the WWDC community agenda. We've got trivia coming up, the WWDC trivia. So be sure to go check out the site and sign up and get your questions in and see if you can stump people. And it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. And I understand there's going to be a window time where there's going to be a online beta exploration, where if you don't have the betas installed and want to see what it's all about and kind of get a little tour, or even if you have and you want to give your own feedback, there'll be an opportunity for everybody to kind of share and um, discuss their expectations and experiences.
Yeah.
So
And I guess that's it for
yeah,
us
with that,
on our,
any closing
day two
thoughts?
recap.
Any closing thoughts?
Not much. Not much. I'm just, pretty happy that I was able to do this after, missing out on Monday, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the week holds.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, I know it can be exhausting, but it's so well worth it, and something I look forward to every year. So take advantage of it
Absolutely.
and have a good time. Thanks
All
again,
right.
everyone,
You
for
too. It was
joining
great
us.
chatting with you, Ed.
Yep.
Bye,
Until
everyone.
next
Thanks for
time.
joining.